get into the very first thing here today, and that is the crazy, crazy Nova Scotia legislation. And Lisa and I reacted to alleged Conservative Premier Tim Houston making the announcement yesterday, because he doesn't just ban people from using public lands. And look, I'm all for, like, don't do anything intrinsically incendiary, and that's a very specific term. Don't have fires when the fire risk is high. Don't throw your cigarette butts, that sort of stuff. But he is banning people from fishing and hiking, as though your shoes might cause the electricity in the air to result in a lightning strike. But he also warns people from using the woods on their own property, as if someone's going to burn down their own forest on purpose. It was just crazy. And he said, we don't want to see a repeat of 2023. Well, what have you done since 2023 to make sure that there's no repeat, by the way? Because you're the guy who manages the public lands, not the people. They steward it and take care of it when they use it, but you're actually the guy in charge of making sure that it's not an additional fuel load. And Lion Advocacy on X, who is Viva Fry's brother, is a lawyer. He says the Nova Scotia source legislation for the Don't Take a Hike proclamation is actually more draconian than the government is letting on. A 1-week hiking trip could, in theory, lead to $3.5 million in fines, $500,000 per day, and 3.5 years in jail, 6 months for each hiking day. And then he dug it up in case we didn't want to take his word for it. Restricted travel zone, where whenever deemed necessary for the protection of the woods. What does that even mean? The minister may at any time by proclamation set aside for any period of time a restricted travel zone in any area of woods. And so he doesn't make a distinction here, like public lands, your own land, upon which no person shall enter for the purpose of traveling, camping, fishing, picnicking, or any other purpose without a travel permit. A travel permit may be issued by the minister, a conservation officer, or another person authorized by the minister. Subsections 1 and 2, okay, do not apply to the owner or occupier of the woods or the servants, agents, or assigns thereof, conservation officers, surveyors, and any other person designated from time to time by order of the minister. A forest travel permit may be canceled or suspended at any time by the minister, a conservation officer, or any other person authorized by the minister. And this is the new legislation, effective 4 p.m. August 5th, and
2 days ago,
ending October 15th, unless revoked early.
Or, if COVID were any indication, unless the government sees fit to extend indefinitely or perpetually or intermittently, because this is really COVID lockdowns just repackaged as a climate lockdown. And of course, for your safety and for the well-being of all, that is what these things are being done under the guise of. And I think this just gives so many people who, even though it was 4 or 5 years ago, the COVID restrictions and the lockdowns and the stay-at-home orders and the various gathering restrictions, this, I think, gives people a lot of PTSD, just seeing these things come back out, but under the guise of protecting the forest from fires, I guess.
I mean, it's crazy because we know that a lot of these fires are started by arson. Yes. And so banning hikers from the woods, they aren't the arsonists. The arsonists are going to do the arson either way. A lot of this stuff is caused by lightning strikes. Banning a hiker from the woods does not prevent lightning strikes. And I know we watched it yesterday, but this piece of legislation does not actually comport with how I heard Tim Houston describe it yesterday, because he did make specific reference to your own land. And so can we, I know I'm sort of putting you on the spot, Olivia, can we bring that up? Because I was like, I live in the woods. Like, I live in the middle of a hayfield, and then off to the west of my hayfield woods. Like I live quite literally where the grasslands crash into the boreal forest, and I'm happy about that. No politician's going to keep me out of my own woods. I have trails cut in there. The kids ride their quads in the trails. If there's a high fire risk, of course that we don't have the ATVs out to burn down our own property. But let's just listen to this, because maybe I heard it wrong yesterday, but I remember hearing absolutely crazy advice from Tim Houston, thinking he could tell people to stay out of their own trees.
Effective 4 p.m. today, we're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods. We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary for most of us. Hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods are not permitted. Trail systems through woods are off limits. Camping is allowed, but only in official campgrounds. The fine for violating any of these bans is the same as the fine for the ban on burning, $25,000. And if you're a smoker, for God's sakes, be mindful of where you're butting your butt out. If you don't, and you cause a fire, we will hold you accountable. So what does this mean if you have a home or cottage surrounded by a wooded area? We strongly encourage you to stay out of those woods, regardless of where they are. Please don't do anything that could unnecessarily put you, your family, or your neighbors at risk. This situation sucks. Summer is one of the best times in Nova Scotia, and we all look forward to getting outdoors and enjoying our scenic beauty that surrounds us. I get that, and I'm right there with you as Nova Scotians. But you can still go to the beach. In fact, that's a great place to be on these hot, dry days. Just no bonfires.
Unless you have to go through the bushes.
If there's a short trail to get from point A to point B, like from the parking to the beach or to the lake to fish, that's fine. But that's it. No heading into the woods to spend time there. I know it's inconvenient. I know it's the height of summer vacation and people want to do all the activities that we so much enjoy in our great outdoors. We have a beautiful province. I know everybody wants to enjoy it.
I think that's enough.
But we have to stay out of the woods.
So I did hear right. He said if your house is surrounded by woods, also stay out of those woods. Now, I don't think he can't fine you according to his legislation, but he didn't make that clear in his announcement. And then he says, like, if there's a short trail, like, you know, like 50 meters from the parking lot to the lake to go fishing, you can do that. But he also banned fishing. So I don't think he even knows what he's saying.
Yeah, typical politic speak. And he says, like, I know this isn't convenient. This is inconvenient. It's not just inconvenient. This is draconian nanny state back in action after suffering through 2 years, 2020 into 2021, and a little bit even into 2022. I mean, some of the COVID era mandates still persist to this day. So this is just more of the same from the same governments who, you know, claim to be, we're all in this together. And I like that actually Daniel Freiheit of Lion Advocacy, he points out in that string of tweets, I think it's, or posts, I should say, I think it's the third one down. He says, well, the Crown would never pursue such absurd charges for a 1-week hike, would they? Checks notes, double checks 7-year custodial sentence being sought for leech/barber mischief trial, the longest mischief trial in Canada's history, I might add. I mean, okay, maybe the Crown would seek it, but they'd never get it. Then he says, Canada, people, Canada. So, like, don't hold your breath, because what the government wants, they will get. And I think, I don't remember where else I saw it.
I saw pastors taken away in handcuffs by the government of the premier that made it part of Canada's official foreign policy to defend people against religious persecution at the hands of the state. For example, I don't think Jason Kenney can go to China, given his strong condemnation when he was in Harper's cabinet over the treatment of Uyghurs and Christians by the Chinese government. And yet, first opportunity he got in Alberta, he was like, yeah, we'll close the churches, take away Pastor James Coates in handcuffs. So yeah, let us not forget the lessons of the last 5 years.
Exactly. Well, and people are like, oh, well, isn't this a charter violation, right? Because we're supposed to have freedom of mobility and assembly
Yeah.
and all these things, but not if COVID again taught us anything,
Right.
not if they want to
Anything.
invoke that reasonable clause that justifies restricting all of your
Yeah.
previously held and thought that we had indefinitely chartered rights. So,
Yeah.
no, this is not necessarily a charter violation because they can just justify it and use your tax dollars to do so. So
Yeah.
either way, Canadians pay.
People can say like, oh, this is a violation of my section 6 charter right. That's your freedom of mobility. And that is indeed true. But so was banning you from flying across one of the largest countries on the face of the earth to visit your dying mother, which is what happened during COVID if you were unvaccinated, or if you didn't want to produce your vaccination status in solidarity with people who were not. So we can say these things are charter right violations all they want, but they will impose them, and then they might be overturned after the fact, as is the case with the Emergencies Act, right? Like the Emergencies Act, we all knew it was unconstitutional, the use of it against peaceful protesters in the nation's capital, but that was not determined until after people's bank accounts were seized and peaceful protesters were arrested or taken out of town and left by police in -40 with no jackets. And after grandmothers were trampled by the police horses. So, by the time we figure out that this is unconstitutional, it'll be November,
Or of next year or 3 years from
3
now.
years from now. Yeah.
And, taking out of the COVID playbook once again, the Ministry of Natural Resources has put out a post calling people to snitch on their neighbors. If you see something that looks like a violation of the burn ban or woods restrictions, please report it to us by calling, and there's their number. And please remember that some people will have travel permits to go into the woods, primarily to work. So yeah, just promoting that
Travel
climate
permits.
of snitching on your neighbors, but also being like, only rat on them cautiously because some of them may have applied for our absurd travel permit to go into the woods. Like, this is just next level. As we say, climate lockdowns. COVID 2.0 was the test grounds for the next phase, which I argue is this here and now.
Also, none of this makes sense. So if you have to go into the woods for work, let's say you work in forestry, I would say that forestry is less intrinsically safe, it's a industry term, than fishing, because in these high fuel load areas, this is one of the things we learned about Jasper, is that the federal government let the park get so dry and the fuel load so high that they were worried that mechanical clearing would ignite the forest, like going in there with chainsaws and logging equipment and dozers to clear the forest would cause a spark that would ignite the forest. So Tim Houston's nonsense doesn't make any sense to me, because if it's so dangerous that someone can't go there and cast a reel, then how could you allow logging activity in the forest also? Is he banning logging? Do you people know, is he doing that? Let me know in the comments if he's doing that, because at least that would be consistent. Like, look, I don't want that done, but at least it would be consistent. And I just think this is, governments love the taste of power. And we knew that they wouldn't want to just forget all the lessons they learned during COVID. You can get people to snitch on other people. You can ban people from traveling. You can control them and everything that they do and lock them indoors. And here we are doing it all over again, just different reason.
Well, and this veteran has a fun take, Jeff Evely.
Yeah.
He took to X to post a little, I don't know if we'll play all of it, but it's about a 2.5-minute video breaking down the woods ban because it causes fire.
Oh,
and he says,
God.
Here's how it works.
They put up caution tape.
Hey everybody, Jeff Evely here. I'm in Petersfield Provincial Park in the most tyrannical province of Canada, which is Nova Scotia, with my fuzzy friend Axel, where we walk pretty much every single morning. And here you can see that this area is taped off because that trail is the woods. But this area is not taped off because that's not the woods. This area is taped off because that's the woods, and there is a sign here that says trail closed due to extreme fire hazard. So that is the woods. This area is not the woods. This area is the woods.
Exactly.
This area is not the woods. This area is the woods. This area is not the woods. This area is the woods. This area is not the woods.
Oh my gosh. So
This
yeah,
area
it's
is-
It goes
basically
on.
just 2.5 minutes of pointing out the absolute nonsensical nature of this ridiculous new legislation. You
Yeah.
know, Sheila, as you said, it just doesn't make any sense. It was like the COVID restrictions we had here in Ontario, gatherings of
Right.
5 or more were not allowed. And I remember going out with my family, and there was 6 of us, and you know, we all live in the same household, but because we were over that 5 or more person threshold, we had the police called on us. This was like very early days, like beginning of April 2020. We went to the local rock pebble beach to throw rocks into the water because there was quite literally nothing else to do. They also closed the forests and all of the like public outdoor spaces. And so we went down to this small little like hidden tucked away beach to throw rocks in the water with my kids who have been cooped up inside for almost a month, and which was, I guess, for their health. And someone called the police because we had 6 people outside during a restriction
Outside.
order of 5 people. Only 5 people or less were allowed to be outdoors gathering in a group. And it was like absolutely absurd. And we all lived together. So it's like, we're allowed to congregate inside when we live in the house, but we're not allowed to come outside and stretch and get some fresh air. And then this is supposed to be for our health and safety. These are the things that the government does that just don't make sense at all. And then they promote you to snitch on your neighbors when they're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to abide by this. And then you get your snitch lines, and that become overrun with these Karens who become so empowered by the fact that they can like do their part, and it's like this moral superiority that they feel, and then the police can no longer, you know, respond to actual crime because they're having someone who's walking on the edge of a restricted forest, but that's because it butt up with the other forest that wasn't restricted. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean they exactly did this during COVID, and I remember the Alberta government complained about it. Like it was so bad that Jason Kenney's government complained about it. The national parks closed. I don't know if they couldn't have done it in all the parks, but they closed the highway that runs through Elk Island National Park, and it's a secondary highway, and they have gates. They can close it. There are ways that you can go around the park. It doesn't it's not like Banff and Jasper where there's like literally one way through the park to get to the other side. But this is the shortcut the locals use to get from Highway 16 to Lamont. And a lot of people use it for work and stuff. And during COVID, they closed the park gates. And that was in late March, early April in Alberta. So the dead of winter, they closed the park gates. Like, what do you think we're doing? Breathing out the windows to give COVID to the bison during the dead of winter here in Alberta? But that's how these people are just crazy. They're crazy. And I don't trust the government to manage the parks anyway. I don't believe that we should have parks. I think it should be land for everybody to use.
Well, they've shown that they're not able to manage the parks
Yeah, I
because
know.
the Jasper fire was any indication. Just more inept failures by the government tasked with and paid to do this management. We have a super chat here from Nana Awake who gives $10 and says these forest lockdowns are only the beginning. Hypothetically, what if my horses or cows escaped and went into the forest off my property? When good people do and say nothing, communism grows. Yeah, exactly. Well, and when good, well-meaning and moral superiority people call the cops to snitch on their neighbors, communism also grows.
Yeah.
So thanks, Nana Awake,
Yeah,
for
the
your
system
comments.
the system can't stay active unless people are actively participating in it. And that's why I thought it, those people who were, for whatever reason they chose vaccination, but they didn't participate in the vaccine passport program. They just thought, if my friends can't go out and have a drink, I'm not going either. My friends can't fly, I'm not going either. Those are the people who pull the system apart. They're the conscientious objectors, and then the people who made a choice but stand in solidarity with the other people. Yeah, the Stasi couldn't do their job without the snitches. They just couldn't. They can't be everywhere. So, anyway.